Welcome back to Hilaal Live. Now, DA leader John Steenhuisen has accused the ANC-led government of turning the union buildings into a crime scene where the dreams of millions of South Africans have been betrayed. He said the party's manifesto, which happened this weekend, was ready to take over. The question is, will the party in blue still remain the official opposition to the African National Congress? Joining us now to discuss this, I'd like to welcome political analyst Dr. Levy Ndou. Dr. Ndou, good day. Thank you so much for joining us here on Hilaal Live.
Good day to you. Good day to the viewers at home. Thank you for having me.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Dr. Ndou, so, we've always spoken about, is there an obsession to unseat the ANC, balancing that with trying to be the ruling party of South Africa. Which part of the balancing act did John Steenhuisen strike you this weekend?
Well, I think the first point is that as an opposition party, as a party that has been in existence for quite some time in the South African body politic, the Democratic Alliance has an ambition indeed to run for government. And even though that is the message that is being sent by the DA, it does not appear to be a very easy road to take, in the sense that the DA has also not been doing well. You look at the 2019 general elections, you look at the previous local government elections, comparatively, the DA has not done well because one would have expected the DA to go up. And I think what the DA is actually relying on is the pact with the other organizations that could therefore be able to assist the Democratic Alliance into taking over power. And there is no leader in any political party who will go for elections and say, I don't want to be in government, because that in its own has a potential to demoralize their voters. But I think if they put a lot of effort on the table and indeed a lot of resources and volunteers, they might make an impact in these elections. But I don't expect the Democratic Alliance on its own to overthrow the ANC from running the Republic of South Africa.
Dr. Ndou, and that's why I want to bring in the next question, in that, we look at 2019, 2014, of course, it was, the era of politics where one party itself could try and, of course, usurp the ANC, which, of course, both them, the DA, the EFF, COPE, UDM tried, but unfortunately they were unsuccessful in it. Now, you've mentioned the multi-party charter. Right now, this current era of politics, there is a sense of reliance of the DA with other parties, if they are, to try and get something out of this election from a majority power perspective.
Indeed. It could be a very good strategy for the different political parties to come together in order to take over power from the ANC. But at the same time, it also sends a message to the people out there that these parties are actually aware that they do not have sufficient support, that they can single-handedly face the African National Congress. And my view is that now that they've taken this route, what I would expect from these parties would be to ensure that they maintain the multi-party charter in such a way that it does not break. Because if they cannot be able to maintain their own cohesion as the multi-party charter, then it could be a huge advantage to the ANC. At the same time, my expectation is that parties in the multi-charter coalition should be able to work extra harder in ensuring that indeed they are able to bring the majority, because ever since there were elections in South Africa, all the political parties combined could not make the majority that the ANC has always been enjoying. So my sense is that they need to ensure that this strategy is intact and this level of cohesion should actually lead them towards the elections. And beyond elections, these parties should still be able to work together, because coalitions in our metros in South Africa have actually taught us that political parties in South Africa in a coalition government have always been unable to work together.
And comes my next question, Dr. Ndou, because I want to take two provinces which I think will be really hotly contested come the elections, KwaZulu-Natal and, of course, the Gauteng. Now, Gauteng, Solly Msimanga is their lead candidate, of course, to run for that premier position. But the KwaZulu-Natal province is quite an interesting one because they've put forth the name of Chris Pappas, but then there is the MK party, who is probably going to have quite a huge say in what happens in that part of South Africa. We've seen, of course, in various of the ward elections that the MK party is coming out quite strong. The DA is going to have to be forced into that potential coalition, isn't it, Dr. Ndou? Because they know quite well that both Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal has quite strong enough other parties who could have quite a say in these various provinces.
Indeed, I fully agree with you that apart from Gauteng, the other province that is going to be hotly contested is going to be KwaZulu-Natal. And of course, there are reasons why. The reasons being that the IFP and the DA appears to have made inroads in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. The EFF has also made inroads in many parts of KwaZulu-Natal. And now you have got the MK party, whose leader appears to be enjoying a lot of political support. And that is why most political parties are actually moving towards KwaZulu-Natal and paying a lot of attention to KwaZulu-Natal. The ANC does not want to lose KwaZulu-Natal. The IFP feel that they need to run that province because that is where they are predominantly dominant. And of course, the Democratic Alliance has also tested power in some parts of KwaZulu-Natal. So most of us, my colleagues and politicians, would definitely be focusing on the province of KwaZulu-Natal. And indeed, the Democratic Alliance and other political parties should have learned their experiences of coalitions, and I wouldn't expect any form of instability and poor governance when it comes to KwaZulu-Natal, because it's a province that has got its own history, which is rooted in violence. So my view is that whatever happens in KwaZulu-Natal should actually be done in a manner that governance is restored, and indeed we do not have the loss of lives.
Dr. Ndou, let's look at the party's leader, John Steenhuisen, and the question of whether he is the best that the Democratic Alliance can produce in terms of its senior leader, its main go-to person. I ask this question because, does Steenhuisen still speak to the people of South Africa now, and especially talk Black Africans? Does he still speak to them? Does he still resonate with them? Given, when we look at the Western Cape and how the DA is run, there's a bit of disgruntledness amongst, the colored community there and various parts of the, Black African communities. And given that there have been 2 Black Africans that went against John Steenhuisen in the various DA elective conferences, we're talking about Mbali Ntuli and Umpopalatse. So does Steenhuisen still have that pull factor amongst, the Black communities of South Africa? Does he still relate to them in order for the DA to manufacture some sort of victory come this elections?
Well, John Steenhuisen has been elected by the conference of the Democratic Alliance, and I think they believe in his leadership, and he has got a mandate to deliver. One of the politicians in South Africa that has a lot of headache is John Steenhuisen. Firstly, John Steenhuisen has to ensure that the Democratic Alliance has to grow, and that has to be proven in the elections. Mmusi Maimane had to leave the Democratic Alliance because it is said that he did not grow the party in terms of elections. Now, that is the first task that John Steenhuisen has. Number two, John Steenhuisen has to ensure that the colored communities that are actually leaving the Democratic Alliance and supporting the Patriotic Alliance are convinced that the Democratic Alliance is still their political home. So whilst he's focusing on going to the union buildings, John Steenhuisen has to ensure that he has got sufficient support in the Western Cape where they are in charge and other parts of South Africa where the Patriotic Alliance appears to have taken over from the Democratic Alliance. The leadership of the Democratic Alliance has a challenge to deal or to address the issue of a number of prominent black leaders that have left the Democratic Alliance. And that is the question that most Africans are asking themselves, that what went wrong? And when you get the messages from these leaders, they don't talk good about the Democratic Alliance and its leadership. So those are the challenges that Steenhuisen has to deal with as a leader of the Democratic Alliance. Another aspect would be for John Steenhuisen to be able to pull all the members of the DA together in these campaigns and ensure that he has got sufficient support from the leaders across South Africa. And if there is one person indeed who has a huge headache, would be John Steenhuisen. But all these issues he should be able to address because it is possible for him to address them.
Dr. Ndou, thank you so much for joining us here on Hilaal Live. Always a pleasure having you on.
You're always welcome. Thank you so much.
That's Dr. Levy Ndou, political analyst. After the break, I'll have your latest in news, finance, and sports. Do stay tuned.